historians found by the 5th century BC, the ancient Greeks developed 3 weighted tools, one of which was called the halter, which most...
Being on a podcast,
I think pitfall is too much of that.
But writing to me it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that...
I think quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than...
Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Having my coffee here.
Mm-hmm.
I just refilled, so I'm a very good person.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
How are you drinking your coffee today?
This is just a double espresso, or actually, it's a quadruple espresso with milk. Yeah.
Okay. And what number coffee is this today?
This is my 3rd one for today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not really fasted.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had milk in my coffee this morning, and but otherwise fasted.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoy. That's like having like 8 cups of coffee, or like yeah. Wow.
See what happens.
Okay.
How about you?
I'm good. I'm the weather has kind of, 2 weeks ago, last week, we were snowing in Berlin and -10. And this week we're 17 degrees.
It's supposed to be 19 today.
19.
And tomorrow is going to be like 21.
Wow. And I don't get too excited about this because, I know next week it's going to, 5-6 degrees or something like that. So like I put some of my winter stuff away, but not all of it.
No.
I
haven't gotten that far. It's more like still in the mornings it's pretty chilly. So
yeah. But it is on the way. It is, it's getting brighter earlier and darker later. So that's always a good tell sign that
so many things get easier.
Yeah. It's just, I find because I'm such an early riser and I'm out of the house sometimes at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, that it's like when it's bright at that time, I noticed it this morning. It's like you have just more energy. Yeah. It's, yeah.
Everything. Like for me, the biggest win is for the one good thing is to be able to ride scooter, biking, and stuff like that. Now I just I usually ride the bike even if it's cold, but had a flat tire, and now I'm I just left it to the repair shop because I didn't have time to repair it myself.
Yeah.
And so now I'm gonna pick it up today. So now my riding season starts again.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. So today we have a really cool topic.
Ultra cool. Can
you guess what it is? For those of you who see perhaps on a video, we're going to be talking about this guy today. Well, I guess most of you are listening, so it's a kettlebell.
His name is Rasmus.
Yes, we have a 32 kilo kettlebell here, and we are going to be talking all things kettlebell.
Kettlebell all day. It's a very interesting topic because we tend to use it a lot, and especially now with the last 6-7 months of lockdowns. In our backpack. So I've heard that you've been doing a lot of research when it comes to this topic. So maybe you just go through the history
Yes.
of this.
I did. I did a little bit of a dive, not like a super deep dive, but I did find some very interesting historical information about the kettlebell and where and how it kind of came to be. I think it's more cool how it kind of came to be. We can trace it back, to a few different cultural origins. We find them in Scotland. We found them in Russia, which that's where it became most popularized, but also China, Germany, but also, the Greeks used them as training tools as well. So, historians found by the 5th century BC, the ancient Greeks developed 3 weighted tools, one of which was called the halter, which obviously it's a podcast, so we don't have graphics, but it was called a halter. And it was pretty much just like a big stone with a handle carved out of it, and they would swing it around like a kettlebell. The photos that I did see, they were kind of more like clam shaped. They weren't as, round and lovely as the ones that we use today, obviously. But
I'm thinking these are like they used for training, but I can just imagine 100,000 years ago, just human beings using a stone and kind of winding it up in some kind of branch, and then throw it at an animal to kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. But where it became kind of popularized was in Russia, and it was used actually by farmers, and they would use them in the market as counterweights to measure out the grain, and then sell it. So they as you can imagine, there was men and testosterone, and they had these big weights, and so they started swinging them around, kind of like we do, and making little competitions and kind of using it for fun, for play. It wasn't until a doctor, a Russian doctor, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, Vladislav Krajewski, thought that it could be used in sports medicine, and he was actually the personal physician of the Tsar, and helped to introduce this to the training that the Russian military used. It then later became using the kettlebell as a national sport. So that's just kind of a little bit of history to kind of see where it kind of came out of.
Yeah, I heard also from that because in Russia it was used as a way of measuring goods, and they're called poods, and one pood is about 16 kilos, and that's where kind of the weights come from today even. So you have 1 pood, half pood, 1.5 poods, 2 poods, and stuff like that. And some people might say, well, you have all these people at the markets, if it's it's markets, and people are getting drunk, and people want to test stuff, and people want to compete when they're drunk sometimes, and
right.
So I can imagine this just Russian men drinking a lot of vodka and kind of, hey, can you do this 100 times? I can do it 100 times, and I can, and then challenging each other, and then people are good at making up stupid shit when they want to, when they're bored. But it turned out to become like a very world known, but it's a sport all over the world now.
Yeah, something that was just, something to kind of pass the day with these guys selling grain. It became, something that's so useful for us today. So,
Yeah.
so I guess I've got a whole bunch of questions about, the kettlebell and, how to use it effectively. Why it is effective. And, so I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about that to kind of, get some more information out there. So, I guess the first question that I have is, why is core strength so important? And how does the kettlebell strengthen it?
Well, as we say, core is core.
Mm-hmm.
So core is very important because it's it's the core, the engine of all power. And in CrossFit, for example, everything is from core to extremity. So you want to move as much loads as possible with the help of your core first. And we have these main engines like the hip and the shoulder attached to the core. And having a strong core is obviously super helpful for us just moving weights and stuff like that in the gym. But outside the gym, it's just, you live longer, you have more options, you can you mitigate pain, like having back issues and stuff like that, by having a strong core. And the core, what it's doing is basically it's protecting your spine. So you want to have your spine as protected as possible. And when you have something happening to your back, when you have back pain or so, back spasms, that's usually a sign that something is moving in your spine that should not be moving. So usually it's a lot like the muscles attached to the spine are so many, and there are actually so many that they don't even know exactly how many, but there's a lot of muscles attached to there are the spinal erectors and everything, so many layers of muscle. Then we have the bigger muscle groups, of course, that we visually see, but basically we want to be good at balancing both, like all those muscles. And how do you do that? Well, it's not via maybe being attached to a machine and doing isolated movements, but rather doing functional movements. And the kettlebell comes into that frame too, I would say. Yeah.
So a lot of the movements, so like let's break them apart. So like one of the most popular things that we see is kettlebell swings.
Yeah.
And this idea of the explosive movements. How do these explosive movements stimulate your abdominal muscles?
Well, it's not only the abdominal muscles. It's I would say it's mostly the posterior muscles in the back, but definitely also the muscles at the front and the obliques and everything. So if you do a normal double-handed kettlebell swing, you want to keep your spine from moving, and you have this external force or external object trying to pull you out of line, if that makes sense. So you need to stabilize, and that means you need to keep your muscles tight and working while breathing and everything. So I mean, it's not like a typical crunch for the muscles, but doing these explosive swings, when it comes to a bit higher weights, you need to have explosiveness in your hips and so on. It is this principle of core to extremity. So you're using the tension of your core together with your main engine, in this case your hip, to shoot and catapult a weight from you. And how that translates into other movements is like, well, you use your hip for a lot of different things like running, jumping, and having that explosiveness will give you more options, not only becoming better at swinging.
So when you're talking about like the swing, and I mean, in like in a typical CrossFit class, like maybe you'll do, like I just did a workout the other day, or we did it together, with like a buy-in of 100 swings and a buyout at the end. Where does that, like what part of that is, how do I say this? How is this effective for your body? What does it do for your body doing that amount of reps?
Okay. Yeah, good question. I mean, it's not that many reps, but yeah, we did 200 swings. I think you did with 16 kilos. I did with 32. Well, there's a lot of things happening. First of all, this is more, we're definitely getting some conditioning in, strength conditioning. Strength conditioning in our core, meaning we need to stabilize our core all the time. Our hips, of course, our glutes, and having, strengthening those parts will also become a good counterweight for strong or shortened hip flexors. So if you're like a desktop monkey, sitting at your desk all the time, having those muscles getting strengthened will help you again to kind of lengthen your hip flexors. In this particular workout, it's more endurance. So we're checking the endurance of the core, of the hip, a bit of the legs, not so much, but probably predominantly the grip at the end. And we have those factors, and different people have different difficulties when it comes to those reps. But basically, we can set a certain goal for it when it comes to the swings and how to be more efficient on doing those. But then we mix that with other movements in the workout, and the test was in one sense is like, okay, because we started with the swings and we ended with the swings, and the question is like, can I be as effective with the swings at the end as I was in the beginning, or will all that other work kind of just plummet my work capacity on the kettlebell?
Right.
So that's one way to see it. And then we have the big picture is to see like how the endurance, how your recovery and everything, can you keep that recovery rate going for that amount of time? I think for me that was like a 20-minute workout, and for you was like 23 or 24. So yeah, for that amount of time frame.
Yeah, like I've noticed for me, because I've done a lot of work with the kettlebell during the quarantine, because I have one at home. Just like your work capacity just elevates, and I noticed that last spring that I kind of gave myself a challenge to do 100 of them a day, and it did become much easier over time. My recovery was much faster.
I mean, it's super easy to calculate your work capacity. And what they do in kettlebells, the sport of kettlebell, they usually do 10-minute competitions. There are also like 1 hour and stuff, but the 10-minute is like the thing that the Russians at least are doing mostly. And you have like max amount of snatches, max amount of clean and jerks. They don't do like swings. It's like the snatch is the kind of the swing, and you do presses and so on. And what you want to do is, well, what you can do is like in that 10-minute frame, it's all about, okay, how many reps can you get with this one?
Right.
And we say it's clean and jerks.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, okay, you go for 10 reps per minute for 10 minutes. Well, that's 100 reps in 1 hour, in 10 minutes, and times the weight and times the distance. If you want to be more, if you want to calculate the watt or the amount of horsepower that you're producing.
Right.
So yeah, I'm doing 100 of these within 10 minutes. So it's 32 times 100. Well, it's 3,200. And then we have times the distance, so whatever that is. So we round it up. Let's say it's 32,000 kilos per meter in 10 minutes.
Right.
Okay, then we have a measurement, your work capacity with this weight. And then we can redo that test for, months.
Right,
and we
right,
can add one rep.
Yep.
Well, suddenly your work capacity has gone up. And then we can, challenge you. Can you do 20 per minute? And blah, blah, blah. And suddenly we're going to see, well, your work capacity is going up significantly. So you can go up in reps, but you can go up in weight too.
Right.
So what is the most efficient? Well, the thing that creates more work capacity.
Okay.
So you might start with, let's say, if it's 12 kilos, 16 kilos, or 20 kilos, or 24 kilos, and you start and you do 100 reps. And at some point you want to do 100 reps with the 32 kilos or the 20, like the step above, because the work capacity just goes up so much more when you can actually move some more weight.
Right.
And obviously it comes to the limit of, if you can only do 10 in 10 minutes, well, that's a shitty work capacity.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's more of a strength training, and you can definitely you can see it from different perspectives. Like, are you working on strength, or are you working on strength endurance, or only endurance?
So when you're training with a kettlebell, would somebody, are you training more to build mass, or more for like lean muscle tissue?
I would say in most cases, it's not so much for the mass, even though, it depends on the weight a lot, but for most people, it will not be, you will not go for, being huge.
Right.
It's more about work capacity again, and work capacity and muscle growth. Yeah, there are correlations between it, but you can Google like the world's strongest kettlebell swing guys. These guys are not huge in that sense that they are huge in how they look like. It's not like a big bodybuilder,
right?
Like they're muscly for sure. But I like, this is my impression, but like best kettlebell swingers tend to be, it looks like they have something in common, and it's that usually that they have, they're a bit taller, bigger, so they can swallow more lactic acid in total in their body. And they're not super lean for sure, but they're also not fat. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've kind of seen. But yeah, you can definitely get super ripped and bulky with a kettlebell too, but you're not going to do this like just clean and jerks and presses.
I think I heard somebody say that the kettlebell is kind of the bridge between aerobic and anaerobic training.
Yeah, I mean, you can do both with it. Yeah.
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 How does, in terms of grip strength, how does holding the kettlebell differ from grip strength training with, maybe on like a pull-up bar, or what's the difference there?
Well, the difference is, I guess, like time under tension, and then, depending on the weight, but we say this is a 32 kilo one. Well, that's a third of my body weight. So of course it's going to be less than if I would hang on a bar.
Yeah.
And then it's the time and the tension. Now the good thing is I can build that time and tension with the kettlebell. So if I'm not so strong on the bar hanging, well, working with the kettlebell will increase my grip strength and work capacity of my grip, and that's going to translate also to the bar. Yeah. So there are transfers back and forth, I would say. So if you're good at pull-ups, well, grip strength is going to be maybe less of an issue when you're doing kettlebell swings. I mean, there are many, that's very simplified, because as soon as you start swinging this thing, you need to, it's actually going to produce more force with the speed and the velocity of the kettlebell. Yeah.
So somebody wants to get a kettlebell and start training with it. Let's say, I don't know, let's take, somebody like a 30-year-old woman,
That old.
A 30-year-old woman wants to get a kettlebell. What kind of weight should that person look for? What do you start with?
Well, they should start with a challenging weight, meaning it should not be too light. If they are having, if they're injured or anything, having problems with their shoulders or so, yeah, then you're going to start a bit lighter. But otherwise, you don't want to have too light of weight. I see these like 4 kilo kettlebells and stuff like that. It's like, come on, that is not going to train you. Like my 6-year-old or 7-year-old, she could do that. Like you're 30.
Yeah.
And you can definitely carry, much more than you think. Again, like I'm let's say it's just a normal 30-year-old. Well, I would say for you, a 12 kilo weight is probably going to be a good starting point. However, you're going to pretty fast get up to 16 kilos.
Okay.
And again, work with the 16 kilos until you get bored, and then start to implement, the 20 kilo weight, soon. When the swinging starts to get easy, usually the biggest deficit for women is, shoulder strength and overhead. So, you might be working with the 16 kilos for overhead, but you can still, start to sneak in with the 20 kilo thing for the swings and so on. And, you can increase your work capacity there faster than maybe overhead.
Yeah. How does the connection between the dynamic movements that we use with the kettlebells and coordination? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I thought about this. This is kind of it's a bit like a ball sport.
Yeah.
Almost. So the coordination, it's not super high, but definitely like you need to start to get good at understanding a pattern of an external object, which this kind of ball sense really attributes to. So if when you're a kid and you start playing football and everything, you're creating like this ball sense, the sense of an external object moving from one place to another, and that's super helpful just in everyday life. As I see it, like if you're good at playing sports, football for example, if you can read the ball pattern and so on, well, that's going to translate into you reading the traffic, for example, understanding how that an object is moving at a certain velocity. And I can definitely see when people have not done that as a kid, then like kettlebell swings are hard at the beginning.
Right.
Like the movement pattern is like very awkward for most people that have been doing like ball sports. They have this much more like intuitively with external object, and you can read the pattern, how it's going to flow and how it's going to move. So throwing it overhead, well, you can imagine already how it's going to go overhead because you've been playing so much ball sports, basically.
Oh, interesting.
And so yeah, I think that's one good thing with playing with it as a kid. You get these things just for free.
Yeah.
And yeah, as a grown-up, when we get introduced to a kettlebell and we might not have been doing so much sport, well, this is a very simple thing because it's not moving that far away or anything. So you get better at understanding external objects and how they move and your relationship to these objects. Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit for, again, using your weight as a counterweight for stuff, which is super helpful also at home. If you need to move a couch, if you need to do this, and you just start to understand, if I pivot myself this way, it's gonna drag this way.
Well, I always find it really interesting when I observe people that have, the first time they're doing a, Russian kettlebell swing, and they don't know which way their body is moving or how to follow like the natural flow of it. But I like that connection with, I grew up playing baseball, so I'm, or when I was a kid, I played baseball, but to me, it's so like, I guess, intuitive. You follow the path of the ball. So what you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what kind of, when should you not use a kettlebell?
If you are injured, like if you're let's put it this way, if your back is bad in that sense, that it's actually injured, it's not just weak, but it's injured, and you have like a spinal issue going on there, well, you're not going to do any swings at the moment. You're not going to do any dynamic movements at the moment, but hey, you can do some static movement, or static holds, maybe. Hey, you can maybe do some presses still. It's not going to be the heaviest weight maybe, but you can still use the tool. But yeah, if you have a broken shoulder, a broken arm, well, you're not going to do so many swings with that arm. Hopefully have one arm that is still doing good. Well, then we're going to use that for now. And so those are kind of the cases where I see it. And then maybe also if you have really, really high blood pressure and problems with that, you need to start with your diet first.
Yeah. So do you think that kettlebell work should be, it's already pretty popular, but do you think it's, some people might think it's overrated? What's your personal thought on using them?
No, I think they are awesome. I'm very astounded with this, let's say, the cult around kettlebell culture. Like the guys that are really into this, they all have to walk bare feet and whatever. But
say that again. Wait, come back.
I don't know. This happens in many fitness scenes, but you have like the CrossFitters, you have these and blah blah blah, and suddenly you start to, I don't know, if you want to belong to the group better, and the real kettlebellers, they always are like bare feet, and they're doing, yeah, it gets a lot of like added stuff to it. You can't just
Okay.
be, a kettlebell guru without being also,
Right.
accepting these kind of things to it.
Okay.
Um,
So there's like a whole culture around it.
there's a whole culture around it, and some of them really hate CrossFit because CrossFitters are doing stupid movements,
Okay.
not doing it 100% correctly in their eyes. And but I mean, again, it comes to this play thing. So for the people in this culture, it is, using this weight and throwing it, grabbing it, and playing it with the weight, with this external weight, and getting into like a sort of a flow state, which is, great for them. I'm happy for them. And does everything they do make like 100% sense? I don't think so. Is CrossFit doing a better job than them? Like, well, what's the measurement here? Like, it depends. One criticism is, well, CrossFitters, why are you doing kettlebell American swings? Like, why are you doing this overhead? It's stupid. Like, you just need to explosive hip forward.
Okay.
I think, and that just means you need to get the kettlebell this way up, so the hip extended. That's it.
Okay.
But going all the way up, it means that the weight is too light for your maximum strength for the hip. And I would say that's just also ridiculous in one sense. Like, it comes down to what are you out for? Like, do you want to have the maximum output for your hip? Yes, you're going to have a different weight, a different movement. And do you want to, however, get into some different corners for your shoulders, and you are not comfortable doing snatches yet? American swings are great to start with that. And then when it comes to why CrossFit started with that, this is my assumption, is because of a judging tool.
Okay.
It's easier to judge if the weight is straight up or not, if the bottom of the kettlebell is straight up, yes or no. It's easier to judge that than somewhere at shoulder height.
Okay.
So I guess that's one of the reasons. And then, again, it's work capacity, so you can calculate that too. So you do 100 swings, American swings, or 100 Russian swings, sorry, and that's super, super hard when you start. And then you go for 100 American swings with the same weight in a couple of weeks or months, and suddenly the work capacity has changed dramatically because the distance has increased so much. So that's a good measurement too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite movement
with a kettlebell?
Yeah.
I have to. Well, I think I enjoyed the Russian swing, I guess, the most, because it's just most convenient.
Yeah.
The American swing is also nice, but it's just harder.
Yeah.
Like, why is it harder? Well, it requires more grip strength when you're coming down, and it requires you to open up the shoulders, and sometimes when you're a bit sore, that.
Have you noticed that your own fitness has progressed the more you have trained with the kettlebell?
I can't say I can't honestly say what it's because of the kettlebell,
right?
But I can just say my work capacity with the kettlebell has increased, massively in the last years. I can do much more with these weights now than before. I can go much heavier. I can do much more reps. But I have never really done hard kettlebell training in that sense. So I mean, again, nothing says it's bad. or you shouldn't do it. I think you can get like really strong with it, good work capacity. I was actually looking into, so let's look at work capacity. What's the heaviest weight anyone has actually snatched with a kettlebell? That was kind of what I wanted to figure out.
And what did you find?
Nothing really.
Okay.
Like I've seen some heavier stuff. Like I saw on YouTube, found someone who did like 68 kilos and then did an overhead squat with that. Very impressive. But then at the same time, I have like Loco who does barbell. He's a weightlifter, and he can snatch 100 kilos on the barbell, which is a much harder thing to do because it's so long, the object, so it's even much more, let's say, bulky. So I mean that's, and that he's squat snatching that, so it with one arm, so that's pretty impressive. But I think it's been hard to find that. I don't know exactly what the heaviest weights are there, but I know they do presses with certain weights, but like the snatch with the kettlebell, I haven't seen like what, because one way to see this is like, okay, so if you can snatch with one hand, let's say 120 kilos, and you can snatch 230 kilos with the barbell.
Right.
Well, I'm snatching 110 kilos more with the barbell than with the.
Right.
Again, it's phenomenal to do this, but I'm moving more weight with the other one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's with two hands. But yeah, I don't know which. It would be interesting to see. Maybe somebody has a good world record they can send, because I didn't find anything. I was trying to find some weights there, but yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it for today. I think that was very informative.
Yeah.
I learned something.
Yeah, me too. It was super fun, and I'm actually a bit more excited about kettlebells now too.
Yeah,
so.
Me too. I feel like now that I know the origin, I understand it physiologically, what it's doing more. I think I'll approach my next workout with kettlebells a little differently.
Yeah. One thing I might just add to it is like, again, it's so much romanticization about some stuff, like even with the barbell and blah blah blah, and it's like, how did this happen? Well, it's not like, there's of course science behind, like what does it do to your body. So there are some many studies with the kettlebell that show people getting fitter, so that's proven. But like, it's not like a science, let's say it was not developed in the laboratory. It's like, hey, what's this? It's heavy. Let's throw it around, see who can do this the most, kind of. And then again, it's not like a super unique form in that sense. So was this used for hunting or something else before? Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's like in the box, we have dumbbells and we have barbells and we have, assault bikes and everything. But, we also have a rope that you climb up and a stone with a handle. And I mean, it's pretty like ancient, right? So, but it's incredibly beneficial, and,
Yeah. I mean, something that also might belong to the history is that kettlebells didn't exist 20 years ago,
right?
Like in the commercial gym.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew about kettlebells. They've been here for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but nobody knew about it. It was like small fringes. And now through like mostly Pavel Tsatsouline in the States, who started with his training program there, that's the first popularization of it.
That's how it kind of became popularized in America.
And then right spot, right time, in the West Coast. CrossFit found it, and I think one main influence for spreading this to the entire community, and now you can find it in every commercial gym,
Right.
is due to CrossFit.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no other chain out there that started with kettlebells or chain there. I mean, CrossFit isn't a chain, but you know, every gym had like every CrossFit gym has kettlebells now.
Yeah.
It was not the same like 15 years ago. No CrossFit gym had it. But then, you know, somebody came across it and they had it in the CrossFit Games. Boom,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And then you have 15,000 gyms, and well, what's this new fad? Well, then all the commercial gyms started with it,
Yeah.
and now then you got more exposure to other people that, you know, could start going bare feet and do kettlebell swings.
Yeah. The Kettlebell Federation of, yeah. All right. Well, if, you know, I really enjoyed, you know, doing a little bit of a, you know, history dive into a piece of equipment. So if you have an idea or another piece of equipment, like the Met Ball or I don't know, the history of the foam roller, who knows? You know, there could be there
The app crunch. We should have it.
I just imagine the, you know, like the Flintstones with the stone, the little wheel. Yeah. Oh God. Or like the ab roller thing, you know. All right. With the invention of the wheel came the ab roller.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was another pleasant conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Swing it.
Being on a podcast with you?
Pitfall is too much of that.
But writing to me is it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that
Quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than